So, as I said, I'm going to go a bit over or play around a bit with the scene, and then we can see how that works. It's about 3 seconds delay streaming. Okay. So, here's the scene. I'll go over the objects here later on. For now, let's just click play and see how this goes. So we have the player here with an adventure camera, and I have set it up so that when I press the E key, the player pulls this gun from here. This is done from here, the trigger holster. We just checks when the key code E is pressed, and there's a condition here that checks if the player is unarmed. If it's unarmed, it draws this weapon, which is an object here. We'll cover this in more detail later on, just going over really quick. And if the player is not unarmed, it just holsters the weapon. Then we have the shift trigger, that when pressed, it just aims with the weapon. The aiming system can be completely configured. Right now it just looks at where the camera is pointing, and right now I have 0 bullets, so just come over here, pick some bullets, and if I try to shoot, it reloads the weapon. If I try to shoot again, it just shoots. You can see down here the amount of bullets I have and the total amount in my magazine. So if I finish my magazine, it just automatically reloads. So here we have some rigid bodies that I can shoot at, and they react to the shots. Okay. Chat is working fine, right? Just making sure I'm not just talking to myself. Can someone say something? Hello. Okay, so there's okay, perfect. I don't have split screen, so I'll just have to switch between YouTube and Unity. I have another computer here trying to see the comment section. Damn, I have to practice more about that. Okay, so to switch between weapons, it's really easy actually. We saw these conditions armed, and there's an action that you draw a weapon. This weapon is a object that you can find here. Each weapon has 2 objects, a weapon object and a bullets object. The bullets object is quite more complex than the other one. Let's see. Yeah, it's only 14 waiting on the other. Oh, okay, perfect. Thanks, Paul. Will this work for melee weapons? No. This is focused on gunfire, and melee weapons are coming on the next module. Which I at first wanted to do the same, to just create one whole module with both gunfire and melee. But with melee you have combos and things like that, and with gunfire you have different types of bullets, and I didn't want to mix everything. This way it's much easier to keep everything organized. So if you want, for example, this character to, instead of pulling a revolver, to change to, for example, a bow, you just need to tell him, okay, now use this action and pull a weapon of type bow. And now when you pull the weapon, it's now a bow. Of course, this bow is configured in the bow, which is right here, archery, and you have the bow object, which has a bunch of settings that tells what is the 3D model, what sounds does it does, which animations have to play, and damage and all about that. Yeah. So just for sake of showing how this works, you can shift and it pulls the bow. You can shoot. Well, first you reload. You can shoot, but the arrow is has no speed. So for the bow, for example, you have to hold the right click and you charge the shot. So charging the shot increases the distance the arrow will travel, and you can simply just throw it and you got that. Of course, this weapon also interacts with physics objects. Barely seen here. Well, it does, and gets stuck on objects. Well, this one is floating here, but you get it. Okay, so any questions about this? I tried to make it really flexible. As you can see here, if you want, for example, to pull your weapon with another key, you can do that. If you want, for example, to enter a combat zone and the player would automatically pull the gun, you can do this completely with the visual scripting tool that comes with Unity, which is actions, conditions, and triggers. And same goes with shooting. You can see here, for example, when I click the left button, it calls an action called shoot, which simply just makes the character shoot and whatever weapon he has. And the same goes with the charge shot. I forgot to... could the arrows be picked? Yes, actually arrows can be picked because the arrows that you saw there, those are prefabs. So in that prefab, in this collider, you could attach a trigger with on left click and make the player go to that prefab and destroy the object while increasing in 1 unit the amount of ammunition of type arrow. Suppose this could work with spells and wands. Yes, one of the ideas was that while doing this live stream, when I finished going over the basics of the shooter, if there's enough time, I would like to create, for example, a fireball spell, which is very similar, using the animations from the grenade. I didn't show how the grenade works, but it's really similar to the bow. Let's go here, draw a weapon, I just select the grenade, and if I go live, I pull the weapon, I get some ammunition, and reload, and just shoot it. And it has some nice explosion effect. Also, can you add a wobble, perhaps skill based on accuracy? Yes, accuracy is something I'm quite proud, and you can see that here. I think it's in bow. No, it's in arrow. When you are aiming, you have, nope, not aiming, shooting. Yes, you have the min spread property and the max spread. We'll go over this later on, but basically when you're, for example, let's see, with the revolver, which is, you see this crosshair here. When you move the character, it spreads, it gets wider. So the accuracy here, as you see, the bullets fire in all directions, but if you stay still, the bullets will just go where the crosshair is. Also, reloading increases the amount of spreadiness, if that's a word. Also, can you add how do projector and bullet objects relate to items in the inventory model? This is a good question. Bullets, when you have a character, for example, the player, you have to include the player shooter if it's the player. If it's just an NPC or another character, you have to add the character shooter object. This has to, I need to create an editor for this. It's quite ugly, but this is something I still have to work out because ammunition, it gets stored in this script, so there's no correlation between the amount of bullets you have as an inventory in your inventory and the bullets you have here, but I will create some kind of trigger that synchronizes both. So it's not easy at the moment, but we can think of something. Okay. Pa, 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 pa. Yeah. So if there's no question or you want to see something, just let me know here in the comments. I will just go over the weapons object and the arrow object, which is basically what this module is about. Yeah. So, for example, let's see the revolver, which is basically the most simple weapon you will have here. A weapon object has, of course, a name and a description, which can be localized. And this is basically used when you create your UI and you want to say, okay, this your currently equipped weapon has this name, and you have this amount of bullets in your magazine, and the rest of the weapon has in your back you have all this ammunition. Sounds trigger and relationship. Okay. In general, you have all weapons need to have a default bullet, because if you tell a character to equip, for example, this revolver, you can specify a certain type of ammunition or just leave it in null, then it will just fall back to the default ammunition. Here you have bullets, but you can have arrows, cartridges, which is for sniper rifles, and fragmentation, which is just a grenade. And these are the audios used for drawing the weapons and holstering the weapons. If you want to hear them, they are quite proud of them. This is just drawing the weapon, and this is holstering the weapon. The bar. Okay, states. This is maybe the most complex part of the shooter module, because this shooter is heavily relies on animation, and this is where the magic happens. To explain this, it's better to do it in play mode, and you'll see how this works. So when you equip a weapon, you enter something I call ease state, like when you are at ease, which is just pulling the weapon from where you are, and you can even change the stance. For example, if you take an assault rifle, maybe you tilt your pelvis and you hold your weapon with both hands. Can bullets be customized? Yes, bullets can be customized. It's just an object you create here. For example, you right-click, create, game creator, shooter, and you create a weapon and an ammo. And you can even create a weapon that has different types of ammo, and you can, for example, this revolver, you can find normal bullets, but you can also equip bullets that when hit the enemy they explode, for example. And these are completely different bullets, but can work with the same weapon. An example, play an effect on collision. Yes, this is quite easily, and it's done here in bullets, in the bullets object. We'll overview that later. So going back to the states, yeah, as I said, the shooter heavily relies on the animation system. You have to be quite proficiency with states and gestures. It's quite easy, to be honest. So when you pull the weapon, you enter this state, which is state is. You have different configuration options. One of them is the state you are in. This one, for example, is really simple. It's just a locomotion state with no animation, because as you see, the character's animations are exactly the same as when he is unarmed, but they have just a weapon on his hand. However, you have here enter clip and exit clip, and these are the animations played when you enter at ease mode and you exit ease mode, which are holstering your weapon and pulling your weapons. If you change these animations here, it will change the way he pulls the weapon and holsters it. Of course, the avatar mask, not sure if everyone is has experienced what the avatar mask is. It's basically playing an animation on a character, but it's only in a certain collection of bones. For example, here is avatar masks. Just place the animation on the both arms, but leaves the animation of the head, torso, and legs out of the animation. So, for example, the character can walk and holster the weapon and be in idle and pull the weapon. There's no conflict between these kinds of animations. Moving forward, you have this option which is called Stabilize Body. This is black magic, and it's never really used here. It's more used here, and I'll show what exactly this does. It took me like an entire week of testing to figure out how to stabilize the body, and finally figured out how to do it. This upper body rotation and lower body rotation allows, for example, when you pull the weapon, by default the player always faces where you're going. Let me check this for a second, so I like it. So, as I was saying, I assume we can create our own states. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, these states are created here with another package, which is called UMotion, which is excellent for creating animations within Unity. I completely recommend it. Presumably, you have to define how the gun item is fixed in your hands. What about shooter guns, which need to be held with two hands? We can talk about this later, because, for example, the bow kind of is held with two hands. You can either use animation to make the character appear like he's holding the weapon with both hands, or you can use inverse kinematics to make the hand reach for whatever the weapon has the offhand holder. Also, are there animations for recipient victim? What about ragdoll? When the shooting shoulder, This is not yet ready. Yeah, I mean, for example, if you shoot the shoulder should like wobble or something like that. This is not done. It's a bit out of the scope of the shooter module. I believe that there are packages like Final IK, or there was another one, I don't remember the name, which allows you to do that, which could be quite easily done, because I think Final IK and I don't remember the other name, but it's compatible with Game Creator, so you can create an action that does that quite easily. Revolver. Yes, and this upper body rotation and lower body rotation. For example, when you draw a bow, just let me show that with the state aiming. State aiming is just the same, but when you're aiming with your weapon, like this. And as you can see, the body, when you pull a weapon, the body is not completely facing forwards, but it's a bit tilted. This is controlled here with lower body rotation. I can, for example, increase this to 60, and when I aim with the weapon, the body is rotated a bit more. Of course, the gun is also rotated, so the animations have to match this rotation. Something more spectacular, 120, for example. The body is completely rotated towards the right side. Okay, bye, William. See you soon. So as I was saying, the body can be rotated. This is very useful, for example, when you use a bow and an arrow, which can be seen here. Archery. The bow has 90 degrees. He's completely facing to the right of the character. And the same applies to the upper body rotation. You can rotate it to fix small imperfections in your animations. And you also have this pitch offset. Pitch offset is basically when you pull the weapon. Let me turn this back to the default value of the bow. Assets. I think think it was 0 or 20. 20. I think it was 20. Okay. As I was saying, this pitch offset, as you see, it's 0, but if I increase it to something like 30, can barely see him. But the weapon is tilted downwards. If I increase it, for example, to something like -60, the weapon will be facing upwards. This is just to fix small imperfections in your animations. So the default value is usually 0, but in case you don't want to go to Blender, open your animations, edit them, you can do it here, and it's perfectly fine. And stabilize body. This one is really good. As you can see, when a person walks, runs, jumps, his hips usually move a lot. Your brain basically stabilizes your view, but if you put a camera on your head and just run and then watch the video, you'll see a lot of shaking. So when you, let's turn this back to 0. When you aim with your weapon, the body has to remain completely still, or at least as still as it can be. Without this option, as you'll see, it's not really that much here, but the body starts shaking a lot depending on the animation. Yeah, maybe if I turn here, we can let me change this just so I can aim with the body running. As you can see, the body shakes a lot when going forward, for example, and it's not really realistic. So if I change this stabilize body property here and aim, the body doesn't shake that much. And what it does here is try to compensate the movement of the hips with the upper body. Let me just read really quick your chat. Which weapon types will be included? It will come with a revolver, a sniper rifle, a grenade, and a bow. And you can expand them. You can copy these ones and create any kind of weapon you want. Could you show the process of adding a new weapon and using attach, detach with hand IK for reloading weapon? Yes, there's no IK for the moment. Everything is animation based, but for equipping and equipping weapons, it's really easy. You just have an action called here. Let me just shoot draw weapon. You just use this action. You select which character you want to pull the weapon, for example the player, and you select which weapon you want. It's really easy. Okay, so as I was saying, this is the stabilization of the body. By default, I always set it up, even if there's some animations that don't require it. It's there and works really well. Same with these rotations here, the upper body rotation. If I set it to 0, I don't know what happens here. Yeah, I think the gun is pointing a bit too much to the right, so adding here -10, I think it was the value, yeah, -10. The gun is pointing forward, so it looks more realistic. Okay. For reloading Muzzle Flash, could you show the process of adding a new weapon and using? Oh, yeah, right that. How does it match with behavior graphs? Excellent question. I think it works really well with the behavior module, since let me show you really quick this. I started working on the documentation today, and the shooter module works as a finite state machine, which it's fantastic because, come on, here. So this is the state. So your default state is unarmed, and when you pull the weapon or draw the weapon, you are at the easy state. If you try to make a character shoot when he is at this state, it will simply ignore the command. So a character can shoot when he is at a easy state, or he is unarmed, or he is reloading. Just when he is aiming. When he is in the aiming state, he can shoot. Same goes with reloading. If you try to make a character reload when the weapon is at ease, or maybe he's aiming but his magazine clip is completely full, he just ignore the reloading command. So for example, if you want to make an enemy shoot when he sees the player, a good way of doing this would be checking if the enemy can see the player, and if he can see the player, just store the position of the player in a vector-free variable, and then, for example, wait between a random time between 0.1 second and 0.5, and make the character shoot at that position. If the player has moved, the bullet will just miss, and if the player is still there, it will hit the player. So it's really easy to create an AI here, and if you want to increase the difficulty, you just have to make the time between the enemy aiming at the character and shooting the weapon, this window of time, a little bit less. Also, there is no automatic weapon. Yes, it's really easy to create an automatic weapon. In fact, we can do this right now. So right now, when you aim and you left click, it shoots the weapon, but if you hold the weapon, it just shoots once. To change this, we can go to the trigger shoot. This is 100% customizable, and instead of using the on mouse down, or in fact when you click on mouse down, you can go here and add, for example, a wait, or no wait, just restart actions, and this will simply just go over this action when it finishes shooting. So if I shoot, it stops shooting. This is a very silly example, but of course you have to control when you lift the left click button and stop this action, but it's just another action here. Hope this makes sense though. Going back to the revolver. Okay, yes. So this part here, I think it's settled. If there's any question about states, just let me know. This is the most complex part, maybe. The other ones is quite simple. For example, this section, 3D model, it's basically which model you want to have in your character. In this case, it's a revolver. The revolver is just a 3D model with a special component that we'll overview in just a sec. Let's just go over the rest of the options. Here in attachment, you can select in which bone of the character it goes. If you're, for example, your character is not humanoid, you can select none, and it will simply attach the object as a child of the root of the object. Imagine, for example, your character is a capsule, and you attach the weapon to the none option. It will just place the revolver at the center of the capsule. So you have plenty of options here. Left hand, right hand, left arm and right arm. If in case, for example, you are like creating a game like Push Like Gear and your weapon is in your forearm. And this prefab position and prefab rotation is just an offset. If I set this to 0, 0, 0, it will put the weapon too close to the wrist of the hand, because there's the bone. So to find these values, you just have to pull the weapon, aim at, click pause, go to the scene, check the weapon here, and you see that these values are the same as these ones. If you see, for example, that the weapon is not correctly positioned, you want it a bit more here, or you want it here, just whatever. Copy these values, paste them here, and it's done. Hey Neka, what about muzzle flashes, smoke and shell objects? Are they easily to add? Yes, in fact, uh, yes. The bow, for example, when the no, the weapon when it shoots. Let me check. When you shoot with your weapon, have no bullets. When I shoot, okay, I think I got it. There's here, barely visible, but there's a bit of smoke. When shooting, the smoke can be, you can create smoke, and if you want, for example, the shells flying away, you can create a particle system with these shells, and it's really easy to do. And muzzle flashes, well, as you see here, there's a muzzle flash when at the impact point and at the tip of the weapon. Can we make custom attachment zones, like shooting from the shoulder like a robot? Good question. I think you can't shoot from the shoulder. Yeah, I can add that. We can talk about it. Yeah, it should be feasible. I mean, this is just a bone. Yeah, we'll add that. Okay, so the weapon is clear, I think. Now the bullet. As I said, the bullet needs to be linked to a weapon. In this case, for example, revolver shoots bullets. The bullet object is this one. Let me close this so it's not overwhelming. And a bullet always has an ammo ID. In this case, revolver regular ammo. By default, it has a big number. You can change that. It's just to store the values. Hey, we're boss. Okay, and name and description, same as the weapon. It's basically used when you create UI elements. As you can see, you have different actions here on start charging. I think I didn't say this before, but a weapon has two fire modes. One is shooting, and the other is starting to shoot, shoot, and end shoot. Hope that makes sense. For example, Mega Man, you could just simply shoot, or you could charge a shot. Or, for example, with a bow and an arrow, you tense the bow and then you release it. The on-shoot action always fires, even however, whatever if it's a simple shot or a charge shot. On start charging, fires as soon as you start charging your shots, and on end charge, fires at the end, right after the on-shoot, as long as it was a charge shot. It would be cool for mages to have like orbs and such. Yeah, I think you weren't here before when I said that, but the idea, if I have time, is to create a fireball weapon from scratch using the current animations that come with this module. But in other assets, they have an empty game object where the bullet shells will instantiate. It's really easy to do this, seriously. If you open, for example, your revolver prefab, which is what it's the weapon attached to your hand, you can create, for example, here a trigger. Let me see, trigger here, and you have the shooter module has different igniters. In this case, for example, on shoot, it will play this action whenever this weapon is shot. So you can create, for example, here an action that does instantiate object, instantiate, and create a shell from here. It's really easy. So going back here, yeah, I forgot, let me check the comment sections, 1 second. Can you move the camera controller in different positions, more like TPS like? It's hard to see the aim in this position. Yes, I have different scenes here. I didn't go over them. Let's do it now. So this is the Dps Scene, which stands for third-person shooter. Here's top-down perspective. Let's see it. Hopefully it won't break. You can pull the weapon. The character moves at the mouse, picks some ammunition, and aim. this crosshair here obviously has to change, and as you can see, it shoots wherever the mouse is. Oh yeah, and the muzzle flash can be seen here. And we can go over the different scenes. For example, side scroll, it's exactly the same, but the character is on a side scroll perspective. You can go right, you can go left, you can forward your weapon and aim at whatever direction you are. And with first-person shooter, it's the same. I think this one has a sniper rifle. So this is the character, collect some weapons, and here you have the sniper rifle, and you can, of course I have to reload first. There's some jittering here, I don't know what that is. It's probably the new character controller, which is not correctly set up. Is the weapon position bound to the bone of the game object? Not sure what you mean this. Is the weapon position bound to the bone of the game object? It is bound. For example, the revolver is bound to the right hand. Let's see here. You specified the bone, it is bound, but you can also specify the offset position and rotation. So if I set this to 0, 0, 0, everything as 0, it will place the weapon at the wrist of the character, and you can just simply hit pause in the game and tweak around the parameters to see which is the position and what's the rotation. It's just a little bit of calibration, and that's all. So going back to the third-person shooter. Where was I? Oh yeah, here in the 3D model. I said this is just a prefab, and it is just a prefab, but it requires a component called weapon muzzle. This component is required and basically says what's the direction of the weapon and where is the fire coming from, because each weapon has different length and sizes and shooting points. So it's a very simple component, and you can tweak this. For example, if you want your weapon to shoot in to the right, you can do that. And the bullet went that way. Let's not forget to... where was that? Here. Okay. Nope. 90 degrees. Yes. 90 degrees. Oh, by the way, these 3D models are... most of them are taken from Sketchfab. They have a Creative Commons attribution license, which you can find them here. But the bow model is made by Weirbus. Thank you, Weirbus. Cheers to you. And that's all. That's all for the weapon. We can move to the bullets that we were talking about before. The general settings, it's really easy. You have a fire rate, which is how many bullets can you fire per second. In this case, for example, it's just 10 bullets per second. If you, for example, have just 1 bullet per second and you smash the left click, it will just shoot one bullet and wait at least 1 second until you are able to shoot another one. So this, for example, plays very well with the behavior module, because your enemies can constantly command them. You can command them to constantly shoot at the player, and the fire rate will dictate how many bullets are going to be shot. Infinite ammo, just whatever bullets you shoot, they won't decrease. Really simple. Clip size is your magazine. Auto reload means that when you run out of bullets in your clip, if you try to shoot, it will automatically try to reload. For example, here I try to shoot and it reloads because I had no bullets. But if I uncheck the auto reload, I can shoot the last bullet, but the next bullet won't be shot. And reload duration, this one is really cool because it doesn't just wait. This in seconds. It doesn't just wait this time to reload the weapon, but also stretches the reload animation to fit this. For example, here the reload animation, it takes 1 second. If I increase this to 5 seconds, take a look at the animation. It goes like in slow motion, and it will take 5 seconds for the character to have reloaded. Okay, this is quite easy. Charging. Let's do something. I'll leave charging for the last because I want first to overview these two here, and then we'll go back to charging, which is basically an extension of aiming and shooting. So, shooting. You have different aiming modes. You have a crosshair and a trajectory. Crosshair means this little cross in your scene. I created a few ones, for example, crosshairs, high tech. And you see this fancy animation here. Let's get some bullets. And also shows you the amount of focus you have. Focus is basically how much the bullet is spread. Here, this is spread quite a lot. And if you focus here, the bullet will go right where you want it to go. So, focus time. Focus time is the speed at which the crosshair increases the precision and decreases the precision. For example, a revolver has quite fast precision recovery, but if I increase this to, for example, 2 seconds, the precision increases in a rate of 2 seconds per unit, as you can see. It takes quite a lot for the character to focus at one position. This, for example, is very useful for sniper rifles, where you have to be really steady for the crosshair to increase its precision to shoot at the targets. What else? If we change this crosshair to trajectory, you get a bunch of new options here. You have the aiming mode. Here you have a straight line. You can see that in a second. I think it's hidden. Let me check this really quick. No, it's not hidden. I'm missing something here. Yeah, I think it's the material. Fault line material. Nope. Trajectory. I don't know. Maybe this one. And it's not working now. Okay. What about the curved? Let's see. Sorry guys, things about live streaming. No, why not? Why not? It should be doing this. Poster, let me check this. The difference between this and the bow. The bow, I think it's supposed to have a trajectory. Something's wrong. Something is wrong. Bow. Trajectory curve. Okay, I'll have to take a look at this. Basically, it should show you a straight line if you use this straight mode, and it goes from the muzzle of your weapon till where it's going to shoot, and curve will basically show a trajectory of an object affected by the gravity of the game. So if you increase the gravity curve will be more straight, and if you increase the, if you decrease the gravity, the line will be more straight, and if you increase the gravity, the curve will be more curved. This was really cool. Don't know what's not working. And you have these two shooting aiming modes basically. It will just shoot straight. You have no guide. Might be useful if, for example, your weapon has a physical indicator built in your 3D model, but you will normally use either a crosshair or a trajectory. Let's go back to the revolver. Bullets. What about? This was 0.25. Shooting. This is, let me check the comments. Okay. If you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand and I'll answer them. Shooting type. You can shoot these different types. So forget about this and just focus on this, because this changes the whatever is below. You have raycasting. Raycasting is basically it's also called hit scan weapons, which are very common at the moment. It's not this weapon. It's the revolver. So change that. It's an immediate. You shoot, and you get a shot at the position, a desired position, at the same frame where you made the shot. Let's bring over here. Okay. You also have projectile. Projectile. If you select projectile but you don't have any prefab projectile, you'll get this error. There are some required objects that need to be filled before clicking play. Let's see. So we'll be able to use the model in my game, point and click at vector, fixed camera. Yes, absolutely. This is supposed to work with the game creator, with behavior module, with the stats module, with basically any module. And can you show a top-down example with aiming crosshair? I had this top-down here. The problem is that the crosshair is always at the center of the player, because that's where the camera is aiming at. So if you want, for example, to have a crosshair where the mouse is, you have to change the texture of the mouse. You can easily do that using the cursor action. Basically, you can drop in a texture and will change into, for example, a crosshair. Go back here. Okay, recoil. Recoil is the remember you have the crosshair here. Oh, sorry. Wasn't here. Was here. Projectile. You can use a projectile. For example, the bow is a classic example. You have this 3D model here, which is basically an arrow with a box collider and a bunch of triggers that allow you, for example, when you shoot this arrow, if it collides with something, it gets parented to the other object, and it looks like it gets stuck there. And if you have the stats module, for example, when this collider hits something, I think yes, this one, on collider enter, you could create an action here that decreases the health of the targeted object, which you can store here. Store self and store collider. Thanks, guys. Going back here. Oh no, we're here. Bullets. Yeah, this is prefab muzzle flash. Someone was asking about this before. You can drop your prefab here, which is basically a particle effect. There's nothing more to it. It's just, for example, this one is a bunch of smoke here, and there's some, I have an actions here which basically says on enable, do this, which is adding some light, an orange light, which looks much cool. And an animation here which was, I don't remember what was this. Animation. Oh yeah, it's the cone for the flash. It's an object. It's really simple. So it's basically a particle system, nothing else. Here, okay, Muzzle Flash. We go to, for example, raycast all is the same as raycast, but it won't just stop at the first collided object. You can shoot, for example, this one and penetrate both the first enemy, the second enemy it encounters, and ad infinitum. Trajectory cast is has some more options here. It basically it's like a raycast, but with a curvature. This plays really nice with the trajectory, which follows the same arc. How can I check if an NPC is hit by a bullet? Here, you get the on shoot action, and this on shoot action will the invoker property will how is that called? Reference the enemy shot. You can do this the other way around. You'll have, I think it's not yet available here. You'll have another trigger on the shooter. Yeah, it's not yet ready here, but you'll get a trigger that it's called on get shot or something like that. I'll have to figure out the name. That will be executed every time a weapon hits this object. Does that make sense? None of these guns have a proper reload animation where you take out the magazine, then put a new one. The bow has this. We can play it right away. So it's not a magazine, but the arrow is taken from the back and pulled into the string of the bow. Show this really quick. For example, here. You take the arrow, which is in your right hand, and you have the bow on your left hand. And it goes all together. There you have the trajectory. Nice, that makes so much easier. Yeah. Weapon. Okay. And why is it working now? Trajectory for. Not sure why it wasn't working before. Maybe I misconfigured something. Trajectory. Oh, let's see this one now. So the shooter shoot and the victim will rise an event to get damage and play animation and sound. Yes. The sound, there are different sounds. So I wanted to have different layers of sound. For example, when you shoot your weapon, when you impact with your weapon, and you can choose different sounds depending on which object you shoot. So I want to have very layered sound effects. Let's see. Now it's working. It's barely seen, but you have the trajectory there. And as you can see, the shot is made at the tip of where that trajectory goes. Doesn't make sense to have a weapon that shoots arc bullets. Whatever. Yeah, Mac, that's what it sounds. Shoot. That's what it sounds like. Will sound be 3D? Yes. I think it's here in audio. We'll overview here in just a second. I'm experimenting with basic cover system at the moment. I'm working, but I wonder if your module has this feature. I wanted to have some cover system, but at the end I removed this from the list of things to do because this module was quite complex to start with, and the cover maybe it makes more sense in the traversal module, but I can assure it's going to be there. So it's something I want to really do, but I'm not sure the scope of this project had space for a cover system. A sniper rifle will shoot like that in kilometers. Yeah, for example, yeah. You could create a realistic ballistic system and have the bullets have some kind of trajectory. Yeah, absolutely. Cover system bolt is a planning traversal module. Yeah, we'll brainstorm about this in a few months after the milling module. So continuing with this, we were here in shooting. You have trajectory cast and whoopsie, we just stole. Yeah. So that's all the shooting modes. Let's overview, for example, if you go to raycast, you have different properties. You have a max distance, the prefab that it's played at the muzzle of your weapon, the effect that is played at the collision point. It's this prefab here. It's just a particle effect. It's these sparks and some smoke. Nothing fancy. Maybe as a custom action on the hub. Actions are not magic, but I think it makes more sense to have them at the traversal module because taking cover, it's very similar to hanging a wall when you want, for example, to have some kind of parkour and you want to hang from a ledge. It makes sense to have everything in that module. For the event to get damage and play animation and sound, do you recommend the on-receive event trigger? No, you have a specific trigger for that, like on-receive shot, or I don't know what name I'm going to how am I going to call it, but yeah, some sort of that. It will have its own trigger. Okay, let's go back here. Bullets. Then you have a layer mask, of course. How much force is going to push any rigid bodies, if any at all. I didn't want to do this, but there was no easy way to add force to the objects because it depends on in the direction the weapon is moving towards, and sometimes if you instantiate a prefab at the collision point, it takes the normal of the surface, and it didn't quite stick. So I added this property, push force. You can, for example, add 100, and if you shoot a bullet to these rigid bodies here, let's see, you'll see that they go flying away. And I see that I don't have this. Okay. What else? You can use a shooting trail. This is quite cool, actually. Let's see, for example. So this is a trick that I learned playing from. Let's see the comment section. Will the module work for non-humanoid characters like a tank? I believe so. I believe that yes. I can assure this at the moment because I just tried it with humanoid characters, but your weapon, for example, can have this 3D model here attached to the non-object, so it will get instantiated at the center of the character, in your case a tank. So it should work. It should work. I can assure it at the moment, but it's going to. Going back here. Yes, the shooting trail. Playing Uncharted, weapons in Uncharted have what it's called hit scan. It's the same as raycast. Basically means that when you shoot a weapon, it impacts the objective at the same frame. So to make the illusion of the bullet traveling across the map, you have trails. So when you shoot a bullet and it impacts the point, there's a delay between the how to call it. There's a delay in the trail, but not in the impact. But it's so fast that you think the bullet took like 0.05 seconds to hit the marker. If I increase this, you'll see what I'm talking about. Let's collect some bullets. If I shoot here, you'll see there's a trail here that it's diminishing over time. So it looks like the bullet is still traveling there, or it's like the smoke of the trail, and it finishes at the end. So having a value of really small values here, 0.05, makes the weapon. Let's get some bullets. The smoke is occlusion is hiding the effect, but it looks like the bullets are traveling across the map. So yeah, you have this. You can customize the material. You can customize, for example, the width of this trail, the texture mode, the alignment. It's basically like a line renderer. This is for the raycast. Let's see, the raycast and raycast all have exactly the same properties. Trajectory cast, exactly the same properties. What changes is in projectile, which has less properties. Obviously, you don't have the shooting trail, because the shooting trail can be a trail renderer inside your projectile, like in the arrows. Let's see the comments. Can the raycast be slowed down to shoot, say, a slow traveling bullet? No, the raycast is an object that it's a bullet type that as soon as you shoot it, it impacts the object. If you want a delay, you'll have to use a projectile, and as the arrows, it's basically an object that a rigid body object that is thrown. Can we use the slow time action and get bullet time as in the Matrix? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We can do this at the moment. Here in aim, we can add a property here in time scale and add it to 0.5. Copy this action and action stop. We'll paste it here and return the time scale to its proper, and we'll see. We take the bullets, we reload, we jump, and when we aim, we have bullet time. And sorry, but the bullets here, it says object not set to an instance of the object. That's because the bullet here is set to projectile instead of raycast, because if it's a projectile, it requires a prefab projector, a projectile. It says here shooter projectile mode requires projectile prefab. So we set this to raycast, hit play, pull the weapon, reloads, and we have Matrix-like animations. Will this stream be available to watch later? Yes, that's the idea. I'm not a big fan of streams because they take a lot of time, and it's okay to ask questions and interact with users, but for teaching purposes, I think they're too long, and it takes too much to explain something. But for those who want to watch it, yeah, absolutely, it will be available to watch it later. So going back to this shooter, yeah, so this we're here in projectiles. Yeah, muzzle flash with a projectile and distance. Pretty simple. Let's go back to raycast. So we have these three other properties here. Recoil is basically recoil means that when you shoot the weapon, it has a force that goes against the bullet's direction. In this case, towards the head of the object. This is not an animation though. It's more the me show you with an example. So if I shoot the weapon, I'll wait for this to focus. If I shoot, you see the crosshair increased a bit its size. If I shoot a lot, it starts increasing more. If I increase this recoil to, for example, something like 0.5, nice. Wait for it to focus, and if I shoot, the precision decreases. It's very useful, for example, for sniper rifles, when after shooting, it's supposed to be so powerful, this weapon, that your next shot is going to be, or your weapon is going to aim at somewhere else because of the recoil. Really waiting for some random machine gun show. We did that, actually. We did that. Here you can see. It's okay. We'll show it later. Where do you adjust the gravity for the projectile? It's actually in where you configure the gravity of everything. I think it's edit project settings, I believe. And it's under physics, and yeah, here you are. By default it's minus 9.81. You can change it here. But this value affects everything in Unity. Okay, going back to these bullets. This is the recoil. By the way, it's a value that goes from 0 to 1, so it's a percentage. 1 means that the amount of spreadiness is going to be its maximum, and the minimum and maximum values are defined by these ones from here. Mean spread means when the crosshair is exactly a small cross, it's going to have a precision of, or an error rate of 0. That means that where you aim at, it's going to shoot at that exact position. If you add like something like 0.1, it's going to have a small error. Max spread, even though this value is quite low, it's something really high, and it's the maximum spread, meaning that when, for example, if you are moving, as you see the crosshair, when you are moving, it increases the size. Now, so it's going to shoot at different positions, never at the center, or never at the center. It's not a random position. It actually uses what it's called a Gaussian random distribution, which means that most of the bullets are going to be around the center, and less probability of going around the center, but it's still quite random. No, seriously, when can I buy this? Very soon, very soon. I just need to work on a few details, and it will be available as a beta very soon. So, yeah, and min spread and max spread, these are values that can be tweaked using global, local, and list variables. That means that, for example, you can, using the stats module, make the precision with this particular gun tied to the level of the player, which is quite cool. For example, if your player is at level 1, he'll have a spreadiness of 0.1, and when he's at level 100, he'll have a mean spreadiness of 0, which means where he puts his eye is going the bullet. Let's go to the ammo model. This is a bit advanced. Let me go this over when we're done with this ammo, because it's optional. As you can see here, there's nothing because the revolver has no bullet scene in the scene. We'll go over the audio, we'll go to animations, and we'll go to charging. I haven't forgotten about that. So audio is really simple. You have an audio shoot, which is this one. Whoopsie. Now, you have when your magazine is empty and you can't reload, it's going to sound this. Oh, and by the way, these sounds are all 3D, so the source of the position in 3D space is the tip of your weapon, so it's quite precise. And lastly, when reloading, it's this sound. So, okay, audio is really simple, and animations is, these ones are optional. It's just the animation plate. These are gestures basically. For example, it's barely seen, but I'll put the scene view here so it can be revolver here. And if I shoot, there's a small animation of the gun with a bit of recoil, so it's just detailed animations. The reloading animation also goes here. This action here actually. Where is it? Where is it? It's here. Here and here. Now, okay. So as you can see, there's a small animation, and with reloading you also have the other animation, which is this one. And of course you have an avatar mask. There should be a gravity value for just the projectile, because what if you want to shoot a rocket and have it to go straight? Good question. If you want it to travel straight, instead of using a rigid body, what you can do is make an object simply travel forward, but without using the physics-based actions, and use the transform move, which just simply goes forward and without being affected by gravity. What about decals for different materials and heat sounds? Good one. Not yet ready. I tried to find a solution, but I first wanted to ship this module because I've been working on it like 3 to 4 months, I believe, and I think it was time for it to go live and see how it goes. If it's well received and there isn't much work to do, I can add the decals. Oh yeah, and decals are much easily done with the new HDRP pipeline. You can use it. Actually, you have the decal object, and it's going to be really easy to do that. Yeah. So this is all for bullets and weapons. Any questions? If there are no questions, we can go over if you want. What time is it? Oh, it's almost 10. I think we can leave this stream here unless you have any other questions. I believe, yeah, we did a quite job. I wanted to create a fireball object, but it's almost 10 o'clock, at least here where I live in Spain, and it's going to take roughly an hour to explain step by step how to create a new weapon. If you want, let's do it. Let's create a really simple object, so at least you know how to do it. Maybe not with the correct animations and all this. Wait, boomerang, good question. There are quite a few ways to do a boomerang, because it would be a projectile. I'm just speaking out loud, thinking out loud at the moment, but it could be a projectile that as soon as you shoot at it, it could be a rigid body that after a few seconds with a trigger, for example, on enable, waits, for example, 3 seconds, and then adds force towards where the player's position is. That way, the boomerang would start traveling, and after this timeout, it would add force towards the player, maybe even making a circular movement. I'm moving to Spain soon. If you're near Barcelona, just give me a message. What if I upgrade a grenade launcher? If I want to decrease how fast the projectile falls, I'd have to adjust the global gravity. I want to decrease how fast the projectile falls. I think that if you increase the mass, it would be different. I'm not sure at the moment, because there are, when you add force to objects, there are different force modes. Some of them take into account the mass of the object, some others don't. And I'm not sure. We can discuss this in Discord, because I'd have to go through the code, and it could take a while. But I'll take note of this and see what can be done. Oh, really? Well, 2 months ago. Oh yeah, 2 months ago. I think I was on vacation 2 months ago. I'm not sure. Okay. So to create a weapon, let's go over the basics. We'll go it here in this temp folder. You just right click, create, as always, game creator, shooter, and you have to create 2 of these. 1 weapon, 1 ammo. Let's click, for example, weapon. My weapon. Let's put here my weapon and description of my weapon. And as you can see, this is a weapon requires a default ammo asset. So let's create an ammo asset. In creator, shooter, ammo. My ammo. And the ammo says crosshair aiming requires a crosshair prefab. Okay, we'll do this later. For now, let's focus on the weapon. Let's open first the general. You have the default ammo. Let's drag this here. The message disappears. There's another one. We'll take care of this in a second. We don't require these at the moment. States, we can leave this as it is now. State aiming, same. 3D model. Let's pick, for example, the revolver. It's this one. Let's check. No, not this one. Yeah. This is because this one is the prefab and has the muzzle. Here, the muzzle, otherwise it won't work. So here, my weapon. And you'll see here that the position is 0, 0 and rotation is 0, 0. You'll see, oh yeah, let's put this in the left hand now. And whoops, I pressed play too soon. We have to make sure that the player is using the correct weapon here. So if the player is unarmed, which is basically this condition, it will call these actions here. Player draw, instead of revolver, will drop my weapon. So this pack will be extended in the future, some weapon with 2 hands, rifle or machine gun. Dual wielding weapons is possible at the moment. For example, the bow requires 2 weapons to be manipulated, and yeah, it's possible. But yeah, the idea is that all modules are going to get updates in the future. For example, the behavior module, I'm a bit overdue, but hearing and smelling sense perceptors are coming very soon. The inventory, for example, didn't have containers, didn't have a lot of features actually. The inventory is one of the most extended modules right now. What else? The dialogue, for example, didn't have the actor objects. Now you can have floating messages on top of characters. Can you have 2 weapons, like 2 handguns? Good question. Yes and no. So if you want to have 2 weapons, you'll have to, here in 3D model, for example, this weapon, if you want to dual wield, you'll have 1 single object which is called dual revolvers. And here in 3D model, you would have 1 object that is attached to left hand and this object should have a trigger inside that on start instantiates another revolver on your right hand. That way you have both weapons on both hands. So it's possible, but your configuration file will look like just a single weapon. Is there a separate animation controller for the shooter module? Animation controller. Not really. The animation system used here, it's based on states and gestures, which takes full advantage because when you draw the weapon and you holster the weapon, it uses. Let's overview this in just a second. Animations here. For example, the archery. This state is the one used when the character pulls the bow from his back. As you can see, it has no animations. It just has this one here, which is draw, which is basically left hand going his back and taking the bow, and this exit clip, which is the same animation but in reverse, going backwards, going to his back, leaving the bow, and going to the default state. On the other hand, the aiming state, it's a simple one, which has just one animation, which is super simple. It's this one. Let's make it this one. It's this. I didn't talk about this. As you can see, the animation while aiming is pointing forwards, but you can point upwards and downwards. This is done through procedural animations, and it's quite good because I had to study quite a lot of biomechanics, and it uses both the torso, the shoulders, and the spine to naturally bend forwards and downwards to shoot at the target. Everything is using forward kinematics, which means it's much faster than inverse kinematics, and it looks, I believe it looks quite natural. Let's see here. I don't have the proper revolver, or yeah, revolver, it's okay. As you can see, you can point upwards and bend downwards, and the character looks really realistically. Let's keep this from here. From the side. Okay, let's see the comment sections. Is there a separate animation controller for the shooter module? I just answered that. Okay, so yeah, that's it. So just one idle animation, this one, for the aiming pose, and Game Creator just takes care of the heavy lifting of manipulating the bones, so it points upwards and downwards. Okay, continuing with this here, this weapon. Oh yeah, we were trying, yes, this one. So right now it should work. It should pull the dual revolvers and use the left hand. And as you can see, the weapon is in his left hand. He didn't play any animation because we don't have, oops, here, don't have any states, but if you create a state with an entry clip of pulling a weapon, it will play that one. And that's it for the weapons. For the ammo, it's basically fire rate. We can create fire rate of 1. We have infinite ammo. We have auto reload. Charging. I didn't comment on this. Let's see. In this bow shooting animation, there should have a straight arm each bow. Sorry, I don't understand that. Let's see. The bow. Yeah. You mean that Before shooting at the key. Yeah. You mean that there's two states, right? The aiming and the bow tensed. Yeah, I promised to go over this before and I didn't go over it, so let's do it now. So in the ammo object, you have the aiming, the shooting, but you have also charging. Charging is when you start pressing a key, hold it for some time and release it. It's supposed to increase the power of your shot or make the bullet travel faster or further or whatever. It's really simple. You have a mean charge time, which means that if you press the key, the time between you press the key and you release it, it has to at least be 0.25 seconds. If you put this to 0, clicking the button will immediately start the charge, shoot, and release the charge. So to be safe, about 25. Charge time is the amount of time the user will take to fully charge the weapon. In the case of the bow, for example, wait, let me do things a bit more organized. Let's do this. Let's take off the matrix time. And this trigger also. Yeah. Okay. So, let's see this with a bit more perspective. So you have this animation, this pose, this one, and when you start charging. This is basically a linear interpolation between two animations, which are, this one and this one. So when it basically means that the percentage of the animation between this and this one is based on the amount of charge, which goes from 0 to 100%. So this would be 0%, this would be 100%, and in between these two would be 50%. Hope this makes sense. I can do a tutorial about this in more detail for another day. Could it be attached to a UI element like fill a gouge? Yes. This is what I was going to comment after that. You have the charge time. Wait, before answering this question, let me go over charge time, and because this is related to the charge value. So charge time means that, here, it takes 1 second to fully charge this weapon. So I release, it shoots the weapon. But if I change this to something like before, 5, it also stretches the animation here. So I reload, start charging, and it will take 5 seconds. Okay, there's something wrong here. Charge time 5. Yeah, because it's the runtime value. Okay, I have to click exit play mode and enter play mode again, and it should work now. Okay, here we are. Let's go here. Oh, it's difficult. Okay. Now, so I reload. I start charging. Whoops, didn't take 5 seconds. Okay, there's something wrong here. It should take 5 seconds to charge this. So, thanks, Weirbus. That's a bug. And so it should take 5 seconds to charge, and this charge value is going to be a value you can store in a variable, which is going to go between 0 and 1. So 0 meaning that you have no charge at all, and 1 means you are fully charged. So you can display here a small loading bar that you multiply the width of this value for this one stored in a local variable, global variable, or whatever. So if the width is 300 and the charge is 0, 300 multiplied by 0 is 0, 300 multiplied by 1, if it's fully charged, is 300, if it's half charged, 300 multiplied by 0.5, it's 150, and so on. So you'll have like a loading bar here. It's going. Okay, third bolt animation looks okay. Thank you. Thank you. It took me quite a while to get this right. I had to look a lot of Tomb Raider's, the new Tomb Raider's gameplay to get this right. Even though I wanted to have the bow like placed horizontally, which looks cool, but at the end I decided to use it vertically because I didn't want other objects on the side to clip through this bow, and it was easier. So yeah, that's it. I said we would pull over this. Oh yeah, and we forgot the ammo model. Okay, this was optional. Remember that the revolver had no properties here, and the bow, however, has this arrow object. This is when you want to display the bullet in your 3D model, like here. So you have your bow, which is the weapon, and you have this arrow here, which is your ammo. This is done through this section. Basically means that when you have at least one bullet, it will instantiate this prefab in this bone. This bone can be any of these ones, and it's going to be with an offset position of this one and this rotation. This does not only work with bows, because as you can see now, there's no arrow here. Oh, whoops, now there's no arrow. You can pick an arrow, charge, and shoot it, and it shoots the arrow. If you want to, for example, throw daggers, daggers are also an object that can be instantiated here. So it instantiates a dagger on your hand when you have at least one, and if you throw it, it just gets deleted. Can you do levels of charge and maybe with a pause in between each? No. Charging it's a linear thing. It goes from 0 to 1, and it should take into account this time. So if it's you want to charge for like 2 seconds, it's going to take exactly 2 seconds to charge, theoretically. Now it's not working, but it's going to work. If you want a charge of 1 second, there won't be any pause. It's completely linear, the time. And I believe that's all. These actions are rarely used. In the bow, for example, they are used. Basically, plays the sound of the bow tensioning. It's this one. It's really good. I specifically like this last part. It's like telling you that's the maximum I can tense this bow. And this one. Basically, this one is what's making the animation tense the bow. So it goes from the first animation to this one, this animation here. And on end charge, which means releasing the arrow, it plays this sound. Oops, no, sorry. It stops this sound, stop sound, in case you're just fully charging. It's half charging. It's late, man. And resets the state in layer 3, which is the animation of the hand tensing the bow. Hope this makes sense. This is a bit complicated. I make sure to have the documentation up to date and with some examples. But yeah, that's it. If you have any questions, suggestions, how would you do that? How you would anything. By the way, if you did like this streaming, I'm open to schedule more. Hopefully with without incidents like the moment at the beginning. So yeah. If there are no questions, I'll just go have dinner. Okay, so guys, thank you very much for being here. What about the crossbow? Actually, crossbow is super easy to do once you have the the bow and the revolver, because a crossbow is basically a simplified bow, because you don't have a charging time. You just reload the weapon, meaning putting an arrow in the slot and tensing the how's that called, the string, and it's more similar to a revolver than a crossbow. Basically, the difficult part would be finding the animations and finding the 3D model, which isn't that much. If you shoot not fully charged bow, you deal no full damage, like a sacrifice strength and speed. Yes. At the moment, the bow. Let me show you that. Let's move this here. Whoopsie. You see, I'll do it again, but the trajectory starts from here and goes upwards. So as you can see, if I shoot here, the arrow goes here. If I fully charge the weapon, the arrow goes further. And it takes more time, hold it, and it goes there. Okay, this arrow collisioned with the collider of the other one, but you know. So yeah, and if you want to deal damage based on the charge, you can use the value under charge value, which is between 0 and 1. So it's really easy to multiply this value for the value that for the output damage. So if your output damage is 100 and you have charged your shot, it's 0.5. 100 multiplied by 0.5, it's 50. So your damage output is going to be 50, and so on. Thank you, Alex, and thank you, Paul. Thank you, everyone. You really made my day here. If you can make a Fiverr video as tutorial, would be great. Also, when you're planning to launch it, I want to know if I should wait for it or work on another option for my game. The problem is that next week I'm going to Unite Copenhagen. By the way, if you're there, anyone is there, just hit me a message and we can schedule grabbing a beer together. So it's going to be a week that I won't be able to work on anything. But I think that around by the end of September, beginning of November, yeah, the module should be it's finished basically. I have to create just a couple more of triggers, polishing maybe the UI for some components here. For example, the player shooter. This one is really ugly. Has a global unique ID that it's really ugly. Just polishing things. Can you add something to during charge? You can use something like charge valuable and more, like a certain charge amount. Add another argue to it. That's interesting. We can think about it. I'll open a ticket and discuss this. Maybe not for version for the first version, but extending the module later on. We could do this. Yeah, we could. Is it possible to look at the same detailed video about dialog module? We can schedule one. We can create one whenever you want. Maybe after Copenhagen, we can on next Wednesday. Not next Wednesday. The week after next Wednesday, we can do one about the dialog module. I really like the dialog module, and would be awesome to make another live stream with it. Thank you, Weirbus. And Chapter, I hope you have Unity events ready to use so I can make compatible with the photo module. Yes, I think about you with this one, and both the player characters, the player shooter and character shooter have plenty of events. In fact, all triggers here. I didn't create all of them, but you have all these triggers are basically events you can feed from, and a bunch more. Came very late, so I might have missed stuff. No worries. I will upload this video so you can have time to see it, and maybe I have time. I'll create some highlights and post this video along with the module on the asset store. Thank you all. Really, I really appreciate it. First time streaming, had some incidents at the beginning, but thank you very much. Okay, bye bye. We'll see if we can schedule one for the dialogue module. That would be awesome. Okay, cheers, man. By the way, can you hear me now? I'm supposed to have all this muted, but no.